Hey everybody, welcome back to the Daily Fan Racing YouTube channel. I'm your host, GordoGambles. Today we are talking about Atlanta Part 2. We are revisiting a track we have already seen, and man, I would have a tough time doing this show, I'll tell you right off the bat, because I got to glorify Ryan. That's something I hate to do. We're coming off of a fun race in Chicago for me at least, and one that pulled in some decent ratings and a decent race winner ticket. I'm excited to break down not only Atlanta, but recap what happened last week. Before we do so, bringing in the guys as always, we're going to leave a little bit of anticipation here and throw it to Jason first. Jason, how was your week and how was Chicago for you?
Week was awesome so far. Obviously busy work week, but we're getting to it. Chicago, man, it was. I'm gonna say it was better than I thought it was gonna be. Obviously, you guys watched the show last week. You know that we didn't have a whole lot of high hopes going into it. I thought we were gonna see a pretty boring race. It was actually a pretty good product on the track. Guys were able to pass. I don't know if the rain, I would guess the rain probably played a large part of what the product that we saw on track. I don't know if it would have been as exciting or as intense without that. It created a lot more issues, I feel like, on the track, maybe some more instances, more opportunity for cars to get bunched up. But what we saw was a pretty solid race product despite all the weather. Kind of sucked to see the whole race kind of get flipped on its head based on simple strategy. I don't know how every crew chief on pit road did not know that race was going to end early. I think us at home were all doing the math and being like, hey, this is definitely not going to make it the full distance. And when what do we see, about a dozen cars pit there on the caution flag, and then they all kind of jumped the field, kind of jumbled up the mess, and like I said, made it for an interesting finish. But we still saw the guy who had the best car and pretty much all weekend drive to the front. So that was definitely exciting to see. Congrats, I guess, to Ryan calling it, man.
Oh, God, I got to do this, don't I? Well, it was a fun race. I did enjoy watching it, and I enjoyed watching even more with some SVG in my lineup. But I think someone who enjoyed it a bit more than I did was Mr. Ryan Larkin. First and foremost, nothing but praise to you on that one. Good job. Even a broken clock. I'm just kidding. Good job, man. How was weekend for you, and how you doing?
I'm doing swell. Thank you. Yeah, that was really cool. The more we talked about last week, the more I was like, man, he's probably just going to win this thing. And then by Saturday, I was pretty convinced to the point where I gave him out on our stuff as my race winner. So that was really cool to see. I really enjoyed the race. I thought it was really good, a lot better than I thought it was going to be, but there's a couple of reasons for that. So I don't know if I should alienate people now or what when talking about it, but as far as DFS and everything else went, I literally profited in every single slate I played, including MMA. So that was the best weekend of the year for me. Profitability wise, it was phenomenal. And then I gave out 2 underdog plays that crushed. So money wise, best weekend of the year. And then Chicago was good. Like, I thought the track was better than I thought it was going to be. I do have some gripes. I don't like that we have race cars sitting on pit road that's flooding with tires floating down it. I don't like that aspect of it. I felt like cars being under tents overnight to, with torrential rain for 24 hours was kind of a bad look. But because you look at F1, they don't go to a place unless they have a paddock set up, right? They make you do it right. And so I think there's things that can be learned for future street courses. And, if it's like, hey, we're going to Vegas, we can utilize the paddock they got, or we can do this better down the line. But I thought for the most part, it was a very good show. And the biggest thing for NASCAR side thing is the ratings, and people were tuned in. Like, people cared about it. And that's the most important thing. The reason I think I liked it most, though, is because it was an F1 race. Like, it was everything you would get.
It was way more
packed. You would get in an F1 race, from starting in the wet to a drying line to the swapping over to slick to single file restarts, which helped a ton. Single file restarts were wonderful to watch. It was normal racing again. Just the way it played out. And, oh, by the way, you had a guy kick the field's ass. You had someone who was just flat out better, a second faster. His fastest lap was a second faster than anyone else's in the race, basically. He was untouchable. And it's just like an F1 race. It felt to me like something we would see there. And so for me, that lined up with what I like seeing, what I like viewing. So I thought there was a lot of parallels between that type of racing, which helped. And then lastly on that race, like you mentioned, we all knew there wasn't enough daylight to go 100 laps. Like, the fact that wasn't vetted out, I know they have their rule of we won't start a race unless we believe we can finish it. Like that's their saying, but there was no way in hell. I said it before the race. There's no way they're running 100 laps. It just wasn't possible. So I wish they were, even if it was 15 laps or 20 laps in the race, they had said, hey, this is what we're going to. I didn't like that they did it after a cycle of pit stops where it basically handed track position to a bunch of guys that ended up finishing top 5. Haley, Elliott, Kyle Busch. There wasn't enough passing going on. It felt like there was. There really wasn't enough passing going on to not reward those guys based off of a strategy call that wasn't, known about when it happened. So I didn't like that aspect. But overall, it's a good weekend.
Yeah, there was only really like a few guys that I felt like were actually able to pass and move through the field. Like SVG was one, Kyle Larson was one. Like I was very disappointed in Allmendinger. Like he could not get around anybody in front of him, I felt like. And there were a lot of guys like that. Chase Elliott, I felt like he kind of got stuck back there in 30th for a while. I faded him, and it looked great for a while until that freaking, caution flipped the field. And of course, freaking Golden Child would end up in 3rd. So that kind of sucked. And I played one lineup and I had both Haley and Dylan, and I was still smashing at that point. Yeah, smashing at that point without Chase, and then Dylan went down. Still cashed, but man, could have been a lot better if things would have if it was Chase that ended up in that wall and not Dylan, man, we'd be talking a different story right now.
Still
retired.
A pretty good race though, but we do have ourselves Atlanta to talk about. And before we do so, guys, make sure to hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel. I don't know if we're going to have this same, I don't know if we should have the same negativity, because last time we had super negative, it ended up being an okay race in my eyes. So
I'll say it. Screw this racetrack.
Okay. Well, we're going to go right back to you then. Talk to me about what this racetrack entails. And it's the second time we're going there this year. What do we got in store?
Yeah, so it's a 1.5 mile racetrack. It's an intermediate, but it races like a super speedway because they loaded up a bunch of banking and there's fresh asphalt there. And honestly, it leads to a bunch of just trains, no passing, running side by side. It's okay. It can be entertaining when you get a big wreck, but man, it's just going to be a lot of boring times in between those crashes. So I'm personally not looking forward to it. Jason enjoys this type of racing. He's looking forward to it a lot. I just don't feel like a lot of this plays in the driver's hands as much. I want it. Listen, I love the old Atlanta, so I'm very, very biased, but this is a super speedway carnage race, and a lot of things can happen. You can have a lot of variables that are unpredictable, and that frustrates me. So that side of things is not cool. But from a DFS perspective, a betting perspective, a entertainment perspective, it can be a fun race or a fun event. I won't call it a race. I'll call it a fun event. But I'll let Jason talk more about it because I know he's going to be a lot more positive. I'll just sit here and say people enjoy the carnage because they're trained.
Oh,
trained.
So there is
trained monkeys. That's what you call it, right? Something like that, right?
Trained monkeys.
Yeah. Man, when you talk about pack racing, has been in NASCAR forever now. Like, I mean, pack races. So we've given us so many great finishes at the wire. I mean, edge of your seat drama as these races wind down. I'll admit, yes, like they can get boring, and you can have a train that's just where they guys just run laps. That can be boring stretches, but there's nothing like a pack race when.
Can we make it a 100-lap race then? Let's just get to the end.
Go ahead. When the money's on the line, right, and everybody's pushing and shoving, nobody's giving an inch. You see these guys. We won't see 3 wide this weekend, obviously, but still seeing guys 2 wide, 20 deep, inches from each other at these speeds. Man, there's like watching it, like literally, like I'm on the edge of my sheet on the edge of my seat, shaking, right, like anticipating something going to happen. Who's going to end up on their top? Like, is this going to get out of hand? Like, and these guys are just putting their balls out there, right? And just,
I got to stop you. You're at the edge of your sheet.
They're just hanging it out there, right? I mean, just, like just the risks these guys are taking every lap on those instances are just, yeah, I love it. I love pack racing.
You were at the edge of your sheet.
Balls out
on top, hanging it out there.
There you go, man. Pack racing, baby.
Well, we're gonna keep it with you. I at least like
the video.
Oh God, I at least like from Jason, and I'd love to hear more about what you got stats wise. I know we got a graphic of yours I'm pulling up as we speak here, Jason. What is your overall thoughts, lineup construction wise, about the slate?
Yeah, go ahead and pull up that graph. We'll take a look at it. What we did here is we broke down, typical view that we've see top 8 scorers of DraftKings last 3 Atlanta races. We actually now have, a decent solid sample now with this new surface. We have 3 races under our belt to kind of see some trends that can start taking place. Are you going to pull up the graph, or am I have to still keep delaying?
My computer is super slow. Like it's literally processing. It's
all right.
it's
there you go. There you go. All right, we're off to a good start. So what we can see here, looking at this, is you can see that contrary to like what we typically think of super speedway races, we think stack to back here. But what you look at here is we see 33% of the top 8 scores came from drivers who are starting inside the top 10. I think the thing to think about, though, is when you're considering guys on start the top 10, is it's a much more difficult needle to thread to land on the guys who are going to pay off inside that top 10. Right. There's 8 performances in that range, and all 8 of the top 8 DK performances came from guys who finished inside the top 3. Right. So if you're going to start a guy in top 10, they're going to have to finish inside the top 3. And 5 of those performances were from guys who led 30 or more laps, right, and scored 10 or more dominator points. So if you're going to hit on those the guys starting in the top 10, they're going to have to lead some laps and probably finish inside the top 3, if not win the race. That's the type of performance you're going to need to focus on in that range. High reward also comes with the high risk. The top 10 also carries only the 3rd best average DK score, so only ahead of range 11 through 20, which you can see 11 through 20 does not get a lot of those top 8 performances. So you can kind of maybe fade the top 11 through 20 range as we look for this, but still, like super speedways, what do you expect? I mean, the back half of the field right there makes up 50% of those top 8 DraftKings scores. Position differential is going to be key. And I know you see 21% coming from guys 30th on back. The key note with that is that's only 16 drivers. Every other range has 30 drivers in it, right? So a lot more likely guys from the back who are going to score well. I think even in this last race in 2023, we didn't see a lot of carnage, but we still saw 3 of the top 4 performances come from guys starting 28th on back. So going to have a little bit more of a hybrid approach, I feel like, this week, especially in GPP. You're going to need to start with some guys inside the top 10, but the bulk of your build should come in that back half, focusing on position differential. And I think it's going to be still very profitable cash games, single entry games. It's just focus on position differential, not even worry about those guys in the top 10.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback on the top 10 starters and stuff, I know that, between Logano and Chase Elliott, the last 2 races here, they led 140 and 96 laps from the pole. So when I mentioned earlier, when I was being a bit of a smartass, that, which isn't new, I guess, that we're not going to see a lot of passing, that's kind of what I was referring to, is that, it's very, very hard to pass the leader here. Believe it or not, it might not seem like that should be the case, but it is. And that allows for someone to lead a large chunk of laps. The fall race, this race last year, saw Chase Elliott and Ross Chastain start 1 and 2, lead a chunk of laps together, finish 1 and 2, and both be optimal. So, like Jason was saying, there is for tournaments specifically, you're gonna have to attack guys starting up front. I think it's best to attack guys in elite cars that we know are really good at getting all the drag off of the cars as possible, right? To get those things as fast as possible. Penske obviously did a very, very good job of that. Hendrick Motorsports is going to be very, very good at that. The best of the best are going to excel at this. And I think when you look at your guys inside the top 10 that you're trying to choose from, make sure you're picking those guys. I think Brad Keselowski had the best car here in the spring, but he was kind of outdueled by the Penske trio because they just beat him up and tag teamed against them, and he was having a hard time contending. But when you see the elite teams up front, those are the ones I would want to attack as dominators. And I think there's a very good chance, because they're so far towards the front, they're kind of avoiding a lot of that carnage too. So I feel a little bit safer about playing some top 10 guys here. It's the guys 11th through 25th that I'm very, very nervous of, because they'll be in the middle of the pack. They'll be pushing, but where do they go? It's going to be difficult to pass. And so I'm a big fan of those top 10 guys, the ones that have dominator potential, and then guys starting 25th on back. Maybe not BJ McLeod, but if we get a high carnage race, yes. But guys like, I think Corey LaJoie started like 31st, either the race earlier this year or the one last year, and everyone kind of was on him, so it wasn't a surprise play, but it's like, yeah, that's who you need to be on. He's starting deep. If there's carnage, he can gain from that, or he's good enough to just get up there on his own. So those are the type of plays I'm looking for. Maybe it's an AJ Allmendinger starting towards the back. Maybe it's a midfield guy starting 27th who can finish top 15 on his own. So that's kind of where I'm building my lineups for the most part. But at some point, you're probably going to have to fade some chalk and try to be a little bit different if we do have a Corey LaJoie starting 31st or something like that.
Yeah, I do think it definitely makes sense. Obviously, this week, super speedways are the week where you probably are going to need to build lineups, with that, chalk in mind and get off, because anybody is more likely to run into chaos as anybody else, right? Especially when you look at the last 3 races here, we've had, actually, this year's race wasn't that, chaotic as far as from a caution standpoint. 3 cautions for incidents, but both races last year had 11 and 9. 11 plus cars wrecked out in both races last year, 8 in the race in 2023. So even without, a lot of carnage caution wise, we still had, almost a third of the field, a quarter of the field wreck out in this race. So guys like BJ McLeod, are going to gain 8 to 10 positions likely just if they survive.
And of course, BJ McLeod finished last piece he wrecked, I think, last race. But
right.
But typically, if he could stay out of trouble.
Yeah.
Sorry, BJ. We love you.
Do we?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, guys, stack the. No, I'm just kidding. It seems like we got a decent foundation what we got going on here, but it's also tough for us to go out here and choose our drivers to watch this week. I'm acting like I'm choosing the drivers to watch because we don't really know where they're going to start off on the track. Gotta wait for some qualifying there. So we're cutting it down to 2 drivers to watch this week. I don't care about really salaries. Just give me a guy who's expensive, a guy who's cheaper, and let's talk about their upside this week. We're going to start with you, Jason. Who is your first driver to watch?
Yeah, I'm going to kind of, piggyback off of, what Larkin said. He brought up a very good point about how you're going to want to focus on, really elite teams who are going to start towards the front when you're really looking for dominator points. And for me, a guy who stands out is going to be a guy like Ryan Blaney. I mean, he fits and checks all those boxes when you're looking to consider a dominator performance for this week. Team Penske, extremely fast here last time we were at Atlanta. As far as starting guys towards the front goes, Penske is a team that you can focus on who, absolutely, they're going to have speed. They know how to work together. They check all the boxes. Larkin, checked off. They actually have led over 20% of all laps on super speedway since the start of 2022. So this, again, team knows how to get out front, knows how to lead laps. Blaney's average finish on super speedways of the 9 super speedway races in the next gen car is 7.89. That is 5 spots better than the second place guy. So guy who's tied for the most top 5s. He's got the most top 10s with 6 in that range. I mean, he's one of the only thing he hasn't done is he hasn't won in that stretch. If he qualifies towards the front, if he's got teammates around them, you're going to have to consider Ryan Blaney as a guy who's going to get out and lead a chunk of laps this weekend.
All right. Ryan, you agreeing with that one? You piggybacking off there? You going a similar route? What's your thought on the Ryan Blaney play, and what's the play of your own?
Yeah, so Ryan Blaney for this race is a very good play, I think. I had to force myself not to go too Penske-ish with our pick. So I went with a different Ford driver, one that is in the mix or was in the mix earlier this year here, and one that is a very similar style racer, and that's Brad Keselowski. Brad's going to be on a lot of people's radar this week. I don't think that's going to surprise anyone. I think pretty much everyone's going to mention Brad Keselowski, but I'm going to mention him for a different reason. He's currently, I think, 5 positions to the good in terms of the playoffs, right around 100 points to the good. Currently, his teammate Buescher's right behind him. He's in there around Harvick, some other guys who are good in terms of playoffs on points, not because they have a win. And so I think we could be seeing a Brad Keselowski who's a little calmer, a little safer, a little bit more reserved in this race because he's in a position to make the playoffs as long as he doesn't throw away a lot of points here the next few weeks. He's not great on road courses. We got a string of those coming up. And then, if he avoids wrecks here, he can kind of ease his way into the playoffs. If he has a couple of wrecks and all of a sudden allows his competition to catch up, that could be an issue for him. So whereas we've seen Keselowski kind of really push the envelope in this style of racing, including here in March, I think we might see a little bit more reserved Keselowski, which could be good for him finishing, towards the front, make sure he gets the result he needs. Which I like from that aspect. And it also could mean that he's just not fighting for the win. He's just not putting everything out there, and that could take away. I think this might be a driver that you could potentially look to go light on. I don't want to say fade because that's not right, but if we know the field's going to like him, we know the field might be on him, it's a good driver you can go light on and try to play those circumstances like, hey, maybe he's not going to be 100%, pedal to the metal here because of the playoff point circumstances.
All right, some good logic there. And we're going back-to-back Fords. Ryan, we're going to stay with you. You going Ford again for pick number 3 here, or how you hanging?
Yes, so I'm using my same logic, which might not be good logic at all. Keselowski might just go out there and win it, and that's certainly possible. We'll have to watch him. But the other driver is a Penske driver, and it's Austin Cindric. So for me, we just got done talking about how good the Penske cars were in earlier this year. And I don't think that's changing. I think they're going to be the class of the field. Austin Cindric, I believe, won stage 2 in this race. He is desperate for a win. Like, he's not getting in the playoffs otherwise. He really has nothing to show for this entire year. And I think he'll be at the front the entire race. At 7,300, pricing's not really going to matter this week. You're probably going to be able to do whatever you want, unless you're just trying to play all the top tier guys for some reason. But I think Austin Cindric's a guy that can finish top 5, score really, really well, and be a sneaky race winning contender. So I really like this from he must run up front. He must contend for the win. And if his car is as fast as it was earlier this year and he gets hooked up with his teammates, that's a guy that should be contending for top 5 or potentially even a race win, depending on how it shakes out.
Okay. All right. Well, I like the narrative we got going on with the playoff spot, but also the Fords here. Let's see if you go 4 for 4 here, Jason. Who is your final driver to watch?
I'm going to break up the bow tie party here. I mean, obviously, I like all those picks. Definitely. I mean, good logic there with Keselowski. I think an interesting pivot would be obviously his teammate Buescher right there, another Ford who I think is, equally to Brad Keselowski. We've seen him up there with Brad Keselowski, so I think he has a shot at winning the race. Who might be a good pivot off there, but I'm going to go with a Chevy. I'm going to go with a guy who, as far as a team that has had a pretty rough season so far, I'm going to go with Erik Jones. Obviously, Legacy Motorsports hasn't had the season they've wanted. A lot of highs, a lot of lows and not very many highs. But the one highlight that I think for Jones and this team all year has been super speedways. 2 of his 3 top 10s on this season have came on super speedways. That also includes an 8th place finish. Last time we were here at Atlanta. If you look at the last 9 races in the next gen car on super speedway, Erik Jones has the 5th best average finish in those races. And he has scored north of 50 DraftKings points in 5 of those 9 races. If you look at when he starts outside the top 20, top 23-ish, he is only busted once out of 5 times when he started 23rd or worse, which was obviously the one time he busted was at Daytona earlier this year when he kind of crushed everybody. But Erik Jones, the guy, if he's starting 23rd or worse, I think you're going to have to kind of just jam him in at this price tag.
Okay, I don't mind the shot there. We're going to give Ryan a little time to rebuttal here. Tell me what your thoughts on Erik Jones, and then tell me your race winner. We got 2 drivers to watch. We're going right into the race winner. Ryan is on fire, so I'm going to keep that flame alive and pass him the torch first here. Who is your driver to watch for the race winner, and what is your thoughts on Erik Jones?
Yeah, so Erik Jones, great play. I mean, Jones is probably one of the sneakier, great super speedway racers. I don't even know if it's sneaky. It's probably not. Some people are probably like, that's not sneaky. We all know he's good, but Erik Jones is really, really good on super speedway. So big fan of that. I think he'll run great and definitely a top play. As far as race winner, I'm kind of going along the same lines of people who need a win or might need a win or who have the ability to run up front, and that's Bubba Wallace. So Bubba Wallace is a fan favorite that everyone loves. And would love to see win. No, Bubba Wallace is just inside the playoff bubble. So he's 15th in points. He's 15 points to the good. And if a driver or 2 grab a win here or catch him in points, then he could be looking out, right? There's a handful of opportunities I think he has to win. Intermediates in general, I think he has a good shot for those last couple of races. And then here in Daytona, I don't think there's a lot of other places Bubba Wallace is contending for the win. So he has to maximize this race. He needs to go out there, get stage points. He needs to go out there and be up front. So I think he's going to be in contention. And then the one thing I noticed here in the spring was that Toyotas were pretty good. As a whole, collectively, I thought they all ran pretty good. They got good finishes, and they were able to deliver a performance that we probably didn't see as much last year, or I didn't feel like we saw as much last year. But I think that could play kind of maybe if they're all working together into their hands. Bell finished 3rd, Reddick 5th, Hamlin 6th. Like that group was all towards the front. And if Bubba Wallace, who's proven to be very aggressive and very good at this style of racing, can get towards the front late, I think he can be really, I don't want to say sneaky, but a good contender for the win. That's not saying Joey Logano. I didn't want to be cheesy and just say Logano or someone like that. And I think Bubba has a realistic shot to win it. So I'm looking forward to see what he can do. And I think he's in a position where it's like, hey, get me out front, and then he needs to go make it happen.
That's back-to-back plus 2,000s or greaters, plus 2,200 on Bubba Wallace right now. Not a bad shot there. All power to you. I hope it comes through for you. Next up, we're going to go to Jason here with his race winner.
You going to place that bet, Jason?
I might have to place that bet right now. I don't want to make the same mistake I did last week. But yeah, that's a good call on Bubba. Obviously, Bubba, always a contender when he comes to super speedways. And obviously, I mean, Toyota has all the speed right now, right? So, I mean, they're a hot team. Definitely got to like Bubba there. I'm going to go a little different, though. I'm going to go with, it should be no surprise, I've kind of said all year, and when it comes to super speedway, I'm just going to pick him because I think he's going to win eventually on a super speedway this year. I'm going to go for Ross Chastain. The man has got his melons back. They're back. He's racing hard. Liking what we're seeing out of our ass. We're gonna ride him this week at super speedways. I mean, he's just great on this style of racing. His aggressiveness, I think, has paid off. 4 top 5s in 9 races, 5 top 10s. He's obviously had the win at Talladega. I mean, we just always see him fighting up towards the front of the field. And the good thing about Ross is, like, if he's got a couple guys in front of him or anybody in front of him when it comes to the end of the race, you know he's just going to move them, right? I mean, we saw what he did with Claxon, right, at Dega. We saw what he did with Harvick at Atlanta earlier this year. So, I mean, like, he's going to be aggressive. If they get him towards the front, my money will be on Ross Chastain to come through and do what needs to happen to put that thing in victory lane. Regardless if he has a teammate, no teammate, 7 Fords, it don't matter. He'll pass them all by himself.
What's your prediction on the line right now? I got the betting line in front of me. What do you think Ross Chastain is lined at?
I think he's at plus 1,600.
Did you look?
Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna be like, that's really impressive that you get that like that. That's pretty good, man. All right. Well, there's 2 different race winners. You know what? I could have guessed from both of you guys, honestly. I think those are the guys you guys have picked pretty often to get these wins here. So nothing but love there, and I hope one of them comes through for you for sure. But that is going to do it for us here on the Daily Fan Racing YouTube channel. Covered Atlanta. Let's pass it around for some final thoughts here, starting with you, Ryan, with the nice looking hat. I'll join you facing forward here. And what are your final thoughts on the race?
That reminds me, I need to ship out some hats. Thank you for that. I don't know why you turning yours around reminded me, but it did. Yeah, that's I missed an opportunity to put poor man's Ricky Stenhouse down there. I really that would have been a good time to call back to that. But yeah, I'm hopefully we get some good racing. I'm excited for trucks at Mid Ohio. That'll be fun. We got a doubleheader on Saturday, Trucks Xfinity. We got F1 in Sunday morning in Great Britain, so that's cool, or England or Silverstone or whatever people want to call it. And so that's really cool. And then Cup race. So we got 4 races this weekend for DFS action, which is cool. We can hopefully win some money on that. And that's it. Follow me on Twitter. Subscribe to this channel, please, and have a good rest of your weekend.
So kind. What about you, Jason? What else you got going on the rest of the weekend? What are your final thoughts on this track?
Final thoughts, I'll say from a Cup standpoint, don't be afraid to take some chances this weekend. Like, you're going to have to get a little different. Don't ride the chalk train. I will say if you're playing Xfinity, I am almost guaranteed Xfinity is going to wad up a shit ton of cars this weekend. They've been doing it all year. So play the guys in the back on Xfinity. You can find, I'm planning on having some content this week. I am going to be doing some tent camping this weekend. Yeah, that's going to be fun, taking the family to actually camp inside of a tent. Be fighting the elements and the heat, but it's going to be a lot of fun. I plan on taking my tablet. My laptop. So I am going to be putting out some content this weekend. I don't know if it'll be the full article breakdown that everybody's used to, but there'll at least be some cheat sheets, some plays, but I don't think a really full breakdown is needed for this race. So still will find it over any content I put out over at runpuresports.com. And of course, free as always.
Of course, free DFS NASCAR. Of course. That's going to do it for us here on the Daily Fan Racing YouTube channel. As Ryan mentioned, please hit the like button down below. Subscribe to the channel. Show some love as we keep on trying to build this channel up. We got ourselves, it's shaping up to be, if we're running back here, how close are we to the halfway mark? Are we at the halfway mark?
We're exactly halfway.
Exactly halfway. I love to see that there. So make sure you're tuning in each and every week, Thursday, same time. we are on a roll right now. I'm even here for these videos, so we're definitely on a roll. Make sure to tune in next week. We'll have all the same fun and more. For any stuff I do, huge UFC pay-per-view week. I'll plug myself. GordoGambles on Twitter, Daily Fan MMA with Brett Apley. Huge UFC card. Go check that out there as well. But no, show some love to these guys. They've been killing it over there. So wish them nothing but the best this weekend. Same to you guys. Best of luck in all your betting and DFS endeavors. Let's make some money, guys. Peace.
Thank you.